I'm Robert with Knowmium, and welcome back to our hybrid live video series. This is video number 5. We're continuing our discussion into tech setup options, and this video looks at specific device considerations. What details do we need to pay attention to when we are setting up technology and using technology in a live hybrid workshop? Because it's so important, I have to repeat. Testing, 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 1, 2, 3, testing, testing, testing is not just for our audio mic checks. We need to thoroughly test any hardware and any software solutions that we're going to use in our hybrid environment. We also may need to test our backup options. For example, if I have 2 laptops that I'm going to use in my hybrid workshop, I may need to test a third laptop that's just there as a backup option. Knowing that there are backup options allows us to be more flexible and hopefully more comfortable when we are in that live session. Testing is often part of onboarding. What activities and what processes will we run in a live hybrid workshop, and how does technology factor into them? We need to consider 3 groups to onboard with our technology. First, it's ourselves. If we've purchased new equipment or we're using equipment that belongs to somebody else, we need to make sure that we're comfortable using it. Also with software. If we've purchased new software or app subscriptions and we've created new templates or new activities within that software, making sure we're comfortable with it and making sure it runs smoothly is absolutely necessary. Second, who is helping you? Be sure to onboard them. Even if they don't need to use that specific technology, having a producer or co-host who could jump in and use the technology is a great backup plan. Maybe you have a remote producer that needs to come into the physical training room to simply see things from your point of view as the main facilitator. That may not always be physically possible, but it is something to consider. Finally, participants are the third consideration. If there are hardware options they need to use in the face-to-face training room, or there are simply software solutions that they're not experienced with, can you get them onboarded before the workshop? Or if you need to onboard them during the workshop, what steps will you need to take to conserve your time and make it efficient? Before we look at specific devices, let's take a look at one more big picture idea. Those of you who are hybrid facilitators now, or those of you who are aspiring hybrid facilitators, you are likely comfortable with virtual facilitation. How do you run your virtual workshops? Whether it's from your office or from your home, you likely have a workstation. You've got 2 large monitors and a webcam and a microphone and a mouse and a keyboard and a large comfortable chair. You may have a footrest and you may have lighting options and you may have an espresso machine next to you just to make yourself comfortable. If you need to go to a remote hybrid location or set up your own hybrid training room, will you be able to bring everything from your workstation? Most of you will say no. If you have to travel by train or by plane, you're probably not bringing your large comfortable chair, and you're likely not bringing your large computer monitors or your espresso machine. You can recreate some of that with advanced planning. Maybe you need a chair and maybe you don't. Maybe your client or the hotel where you're training, maybe they have computer monitors, but maybe they don't. In the previous video, we looked at multiple laptops and tablets that can recreate that screen space. Those are things to consider to make sure you're comfortable facilitating all of those activities. Now, on to specific devices. Let's start with audio. Some people say, well, video is extremely important in a hybrid workshop, and it is. But if you don't have audio, you cannot participate. Maybe people could participate with video only in the chat box. It would not be ideal, so we need to make sure that audio is set up first and foremost. Audio can be one of the most tricky things to set up Imagine this for virtual facilitators. If the audio isn't working and they can't hear the main facilitator, then they can't participate really at all. If they are in breakout rooms with other people and their audio isn't working, then of course they can't participate in those activities. But also for face-to-face participants. If there are audio loops or echoes or feedback happening in the physical training room, it's very easy for the physical participants to mentally check out and say, I can't listen to this bad audio all day, or even physically check out, walking out of the room because it is so annoying. You will have to test to make sure there are no audio problems, that everyone can be heard and everyone can hear clearly without echoes, without reverbs, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes this means people need to bring their own devices into that physical training room. Of course, your virtual participants, if they're in their own room at home or in their own dedicated office, they probably have existing audio solutions. Face-to-face participants may forget when they go to a face-to-face workshop. They may need earbuds or a headset, or you'll need to provide that for them. One of my favorite in-room options is the speakerphone. These speakerphones have the speaker and microphone built in. Not only does that allow face-to-face participants to hear the virtual participants from the virtual platform, it allows them to communicate at their desk or at their table with the physical push of a mute or unmute button. The other great thing about these devices, they usually, if you have a decent one, they are guarded against those audio loops, those reverbs, that feedback issue, those echoes that we often have. The software and the hardware within them simply stops that from happening. So test it out and see if it's something you might want to invest in. Let's go to video, webcams. If you're a virtual facilitator, you know that the webcam that's built into your laptop is probably not the best, so having a dedicated webcam with a higher resolution that can be put near eye level is great. But imagine if you were to use a webcam on the table, but you're standing up as a face-to-face facilitator. Are the virtual participants literally looking up your nose? Hopefully not. You may need to get a tripod. You may need to make sure that the webcam is at eye level, and I love these tripods that are on a swivel because I can point them at a whiteboard, I can point them at a screen, I can point them down at physical training cards or other props, and I can point them at the room when needed. Of course, I can have multiple webcams. So consider, how does the facilitator need to be seen, especially by the virtual participants? How do the physical participants in that training room need to be seen by virtual participants? And are there objects that the physical participants can see all the time in the same room? How can we recreate that for the virtual participants? We may need more than 2 webcams if we have a lot of physical training devices. Next, let's think about displays. In the physical training room, usually there'll be a projector screen or a television. Is that going to be appropriate for the virtual participants and the physical participants at the same time? Let's consider this. How do you want to display your slides and apps for the face-to-face participants? Virtual participants can see them on their own personal computer monitor. The face-to-face participants, do they have their own smart device or computer with them? Can they be seen on the computer that's in the room, on the television that's in the room, or on the projector screen that's in the room? And if you have a virtual platform and you have apps and slides, can they be together on the same display, or do we need multiple displays? Every single training room and every single training program is different, so once again, testing, testing, testing. It's a great idea for those physical participants to see the virtual participants. It allows a bit of equality. If the virtual participants can see the room that has the physical participants, can we create equality by letting the physical participants see the virtual ones? Whether, again, that's on the projector screen or on individual or breakout group smart devices. Those breakout devices could be brought in by the participants themselves. Have the face-to-face participants remembered to bring in their own device? Or you as a facilitator, do you have some set up for them, or do you have backups? Maybe I have an extra iPad, and that one face-to-face participant that didn't bring their device, they can use my iPad. There are so many other details to look at. A few of them, internet connection and speed. I once went to a client office to run a hybrid workshop, and I went 1 week in advance. Even though they had Wi-Fi, and they had fast Wi-Fi, for some reason it wouldn't connect with my computer. The IT guru couldn't get it to connect either. So I had to come back 2 days later. We tested the Wi-Fi connection and it did work. In the training on the day of the live workshop, not only did the Wi-Fi work, I had a backup router with a SIM card that I could connect just in case the Wi-Fi failed at some point in that live workshop. I didn't need that extra router and that SIM card, but I had it just in case. Sometimes we need to consider, how does the lighting work? If I am showing some slides on a physical display through a webcam, they might look good in the morning to the virtual participants. But in the afternoon, when the sun has started to set, if there is a glare, if my physical participants can't see the screen and my virtual participants can't see the screen through the webcam because of that glare, this is going to cause an issue. These are considerations that I need to be aware of. If I test things in the morning, how is the lighting in the afternoon? I can either come back or I can make plans to simply close the blinds if those blinds even exist. Finally, consider other little things like wires. Where are the AC plugs? Have you brought a long extension cable to make sure that all of your devices will be plugged into the wall? Have you considered wires that could trip you, or even worse, trip your participants? Are those wires going to be tripped over, pulling your laptop and your lighting onto the floor, crashing it, breaking it, and completely not only ruining the workshop, but maybe your budget that month? These little things do matter. So, testing. Set everything up. Have a test run. Have some participants. Have some producers. Have some assistants to fill in to make sure everything is running smoothly, and you will walk into your live hybrid workshop knowing everything should work well, but if it doesn't, I know what to do and I have a backup plan.